Human beings do not live only in the world as it is. We constantly imagine how the world could be. We plan, we dream, we speculate, and we regret. Every such activity depends on our ability to think in modal terms. When we say something might happen, or must happen, or could possibly happen, we are using the language of modality. Modality concerns the realm of possibility, necessity, and impossibility. It allows us to move beyond the actual and consider the alternative. Modality is not merely an ornament of thought. It plays a role in every domain of human life. Science asks what could happen under certain conditions. Ethics asks what one ought to do, which implicitly appeals to what is possible. Law evaluates what a person could or should have done. Everyday decisions rely on considering alternative courses of action. Even identity, as we saw earlier, implicitly involves modal ideas, because we ask what an object can or cannot survive. Without modality, thought becomes rigid and blind to alternatives. The world becomes a fixed and frozen place rather than a dynamic field of potentialities. Despite its centrality, modality is one of the most mysterious aspects of metaphysics. What does it mean for something to be possible? Does possibility refer to some real domain beyond the actual world? Or is it merely a way we talk? Are there necessary truths built into the structure of reality, or is necessity only a feature of logic and language? These questions lead us into deep waters. Philosophers have long struggled to understand the nature of possibility and necessity, and no single theory has achieved universal acceptance. Yet the effort to explore modality reveals profound insights about the world and about ourselves. In this lecture, we will examine the metaphysics of modality. We will explore the difference between logical, physical, and metaphysical possibility, discuss the role of possible worlds, consider the debate between modal realists and their critics, examine essential properties and natural kinds, and look at dispositional properties and potentialities. Through these topics, we aim to understand how modality shapes our conception of what reality could be. The basic modal concepts are possibility, necessity, and impossibility. Something is possible if it could be the case. Something is necessary if it must be the case. And something is impossible if it could not be the case. These terms appear straightforward, yet their interpretation varies depending on context. Logical possibility concerns what is consistent with the laws of logic, a notion that became central in 20th century work on modal logic associated with Clarence Irving Lewis. Anything that does not involve a logical contradiction is logically possible. For example, it is logically possible for penguins to speak French, even though it is physically impossible. It is also logically possible for there to be a world without gravity. Logical possibility sets a very wide boundary. If a description contains no inherent contradiction, it is logically possible. Physical possibility concerns what could happen according to the laws of nature as we understand them. For example, it is physically possible for a stone to fall when dropped, but physically impossible for it to hover without support. These possibilities depend on the actual physical laws of our world. They are more restrictive than logical possibilities. Metaphysical possibility lies somewhere between logical and physical possibility. It concerns what could be the case considering the essential natures of things. For example, it may be metaphysically necessary that water is H2O, even if one could imagine a liquid that looks and behaves like water, but has a different molecular structure. The difference between metaphysical and physical possibility is subtle, but important. Metaphysical possibility is about what could be in any possible world, while physical possibility is about what can happen given the laws of this world. Understanding these layers of possibility helps clarify many puzzles. Some things are logically possible but metaphysically impossible. Other things are metaphysically impossible but physically possible. For example, traveling at the speed of the light may be physically impossible but metaphysically conceivable. These distinctions open the door to deeper questions about the nature of reality. One of the most enduring questions in the metaphysics of modality concerns the status of possibilities. Do possibilities exist independently of the actual world? When we say something could have happened, are we referring to something real or merely expressing a way of speaking? If possibilities are real, what kind of entities are they? Philosophers like Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz often use the framework of possible worlds to clarify modal claims. A possible world is not another universe floating somewhere in space. It is a complete way things could be. When we say something is possible, we mean that it is true in at least one possible world. When we say something is necessary, we mean that it is true in all possible worlds. This framework allows us to reason about possibility with precision. It provides a structure within which we can evaluate modal statements. Possible worlds raise many questions. Are they real? Are they abstractions? Are they creations of the mind? If they are real, how real are they? These questions lie at the center of modal metaphysics. David Lewis, one of the most influential philosophers of the 20th century, proposed a bold and controversial theory known as modal realism. According to Lewis, possible worlds are real worlds. They exist every bit as much as the actual world. The only difference is that we are located in this world rather than in one of the others. For every way things could have been, there is a world in which things are that way. This view is startling because it multiplies reality enormously. According to modal realism, there is a world in which dinosaurs never went extinct, a world in which the Roman Empire still stands, a world in which you became a painter instead of a teacher, and a world in which physics has entirely different laws. Each of these worlds is as real as ours, although casually isolated. We cannot interact with them, but they exist. Lewis argued that modal realism provides the most elegant and powerful account of modality. It allows us to interpret modal claims literally. When we say something could have happened, we mean that it does happen in another world. When we say something is necessary, we mean that it happens in all worlds. Lewis believed that taking possible worlds as real entities allows us to understand counterfactuals, essential properties, and modal arguments in a straightforward way. Despite its elegance, modal realism faces serious objections. Many philosophers argue that it multiplies entities beyond necessity. They find it metaphysically extravagant. Others question how we can know anything about other worlds if they are inaccessible to us. Still others argue that modal realism misinterprets our intuitive understanding of possibility. For these critics, possible worlds must be understood differently. Many philosophers reject modal realism but continue to use the language of possible worlds. They adopt an Ersatz approach. Many philosophers reject modal realism but continue to use the language of possible worlds. They adopt an Ersatz approach. According to Ersatz theories, possible worlds are not real places but abstract representations. They might be sets of propositions, linguistic descriptions, maximal consistent sets of sentences, or abstract structures. Ersatz worlds provide a way to use the machinery of possible worlds without committing to their literal existence. When we say that something is possible, we mean that there is a consistent description that includes it. When we say something is necessary, we mean that all consistent descriptions include it. This approach is less metaphysically extravagant than Lewis's realism, but it faces its own challenges. For example, Ersatz theories must explain what makes some descriptions capture genuine possibilities and others mere fantasies. They must also avoid circularity. If the realm of possible worlds is used to define possibility, how can we explain the content of these worlds without appealing to modality in the first place? Despite these issues, many philosophers adopt an Ersatz view because it preserves the usefulness of possible worlds while avoiding ontological inflation. It allows modal reasoning without committing to a vast multiverse. A crucial distinction in modal metaphysics is between the re and the dicto modality. The dicto modality concerns statements. For example, the statement that it is possible that there are purple elephants is a de dicto claim. It says that a certain proposition could be true. The re modality concerns objects. For example, the claim that Socrates could not have been a fish is a de re claim. It says something about the essential nature of Socrates. This distinction matters because some modal statements concern the world as described by propositions, while others concern the nature of things themselves. De dicto possibility is more flexible. Many statements are logically possible even if they involve impossible objects. De re possibility is more constrained. It concerns what a thing could be given its essential nature. For example, it is logically possible that water is not H2O. One could imagine a liquid with water-like behavior but a different structure. But it may be metaphysically impossible for water itself not to be H2O. This shows that de re modality concerns the identity and essence of things, not just the truth of propositions. The idea of essence plays a central role in modal metaphysics. An essence is a property without which a thing would not be what it is. For example, being human is an essential property of Socrates. If Socrates were not human, he would not be Socrates. Similarly, being H2O is an essential property of water. If a substance lacked the molecular structure H2O, it would not be water, even if it resembled water. Essentialism has a long philosophical history. Aristotle believed that each natural kind has an essence. The essence of a triangle is having 3 straight sides. The essence of an oak tree is being a member of the species Quercus. Essence, for Aristotle, explains why things behave as they do. It is a deep, internal principle. In the 20th century, Saul Kripke revived essentialism by arguing that some properties are necessary even if we do not know them a priori. Kripke showed that names and natural kind terms are rigid designators. They refer to the same thing in every possible world in which that thing exists. For example, the term Aristotle refers to Aristotle in every possible world in which he exists. Similarly, the term water refers to H2O in every possible world. Kripke argued that some truths are necessary but discovered through empirical investigation. The statement that water is H2O is necessary because water could not have been anything else. Yet we discovered this fact through science, not through pure reason. Kripke's essentialism has reshaped modal metaphysics, connecting necessity with the nature of things. Modality plays an important role in understanding identity. When we ask what it takes for something to be the same object across time, we implicitly ask what it could survive. Identity involves modal considerations. If an object cannot survive certain changes, those changes reveal something about its essential nature. For example, a wooden table can survive being painted but cannot survive being burnt to ashes. Burning destroys its essential structure. A biological organism can survive losing some cells, but cannot survive losing all its vital organs. The identity of an organism depends on its ability to maintain its life processes. These examples show how modality enters into identity judgments. Kripke emphasized this connection. He argued that identity statements such as Hesperus is Phosphorus, the evening star is the morning star, are necessary if true. If two objects are identical, then they are identical in every possible world in which they exist. Identity is an all-or-nothing relation. There is no world in which Hesperus is not Phosphorus. Understanding modality helps clarify the strictness of identity. The concept of natural kinds plays an important role in modal metaphysics. Natural kinds are categories that group things according to their deep properties rather than superficial features. Examples include chemical elements, biological species, and fundamental particles. These kinds seem to have modal structure built into them. Gold must have atomic number 79. Water must be H2O. Tiger must belong to a certain genetic lineage. These modal facts about natural kinds are not matters of convention. They reflect essential properties. This gives natural kinds a metaphysical robustness. They behave consistently across possible worlds. Understanding natural kinds help us appreciate the role of possibility and necessity in the structure of reality. Some philosophers argue that natural kinds ground the laws of nature. Their essential properties determine how they behave. This idea connects modality with laws and causation. It suggests that the world's modal structure is not arbitrary, but rooted in the natures of things. Another important area of modal metaphysics concerns dispositional properties, often called powers. A disposition is a property that manifests under certain conditions. Fragility is a disposition. A glass is fragile if it would break when struck. Solubility is a disposition. Salt is soluble if it would dissolve in water. These dispositional properties reveal something about the modal nature of objects. They describe not only how objects are, but how can they behave. Dispositions differ from categorical properties. A categorical property describes how an object is at a given moment. A dispositional property describes what an object can do or undergo. Dispositions link present properties to future behaviors. This connection involves modality. Some philosophers argue that dispositional properties are fundamental. They believe that the world is composed not of passive objects, but of active things with powers. According to this view, causal relations arise from dispositions. Laws of nature describe how dispositions manifest. This perspective integrates causation, laws, and modality. Others argue that dispositions can be reduced to categorical properties. For example, the solubility of salt might be explained by its molecular structure. Yet the modal force of dispositions remains striking. They bring the possible into the heart of the actual. They show that objects are carriers of potentiality. Potentiality is a rich concept. It suggests that things possess latent capacities that may or may not manifest. A seed contains the potential to become a tree. A musician has the potential to perform a symphony. Potentialities reveal that reality is not only what is actual, but also what is capable of becoming. Science depends on modal reasoning. A scientific law describes what happens under certain conditions. It involves claims about what would happen if circumstances were different. For example, Coulomb's law says that the force between two charges depends on their distance. This is a counterfactual claim. It describes how the force would change if the distance changed. Scientists also use modality when constructing models. A model describes a possible structure that might explain observed phenomena. Hypothesis involves claims about what could be the case. Experiments test causal relations by manipulating variables, which are modal operations. Prediction involves imagining future possibilities. Modal reasoning is central to scientific explanation. It allows scientists to explore alternative scenarios, test hypotheses, and understand causal mechanisms. The metaphysics of modality helps illuminate the foundations of scientific practice. Modality plays an essential role in ethics and decision-making. Ethical judgments often involve claims about what one ought to do. These claims involve possibility. One cannot be obligated to do the impossible. Responsibility depends on what a person could have done. Praise and blame depend on whether actions were within someone's power. Practical reasoning involves evaluating options. When we plan for the future, we imagine possible outcomes. We consider what might happen if we choose one path or another. This requires modal reasoning. Without the ability to think in terms of possibility and necessity, practical reasoning would collapse. Ethical deliberation often involves modal distinctions. Some actions may be necessary to uphold certain values. Others may be permissible. Some situations involve constraints that limit what is possible. Understanding modality is therefore crucial for understanding moral responsibility. Despite its importance, modality has limits. Some philosophers argue that our modal intuitions are unreliable. When we imagine what is possible, we may be guided by superficial similarities or by cognitive biases. We may imagine scenarios that seem possible but are metaphysically impossible. For example, we might imagine water that is not H2O, yet such a substance would not be water. Others argue that modality is determined by linguistic frameworks. Possibility may be a feature of language rather than reality. Still others maintain that modality reflects conceptual structures rather than metaphysical truths. These debates reflect the difficulty of grounding modality. Possibility seems real, yet it is not directly observable. Necessity seems robust, yet its source remains mysterious. The limits of modality challenge us to refine our theories and examine our intuitions carefully. Having explored modality, we are ready to consider one of the most profound topics of metaphysics: consciousness. The next lecture will examine the nature of mind, the relationship between mental and physical states, the phenomenon of subjective experience, and the metaphysical puzzles surrounding consciousness. Modality will remain in the background, for many questions about the mind involve modal considerations. Could a machine be conscious? Could consciousness be identical with brain states? Could two beings share the same experience? These are modal questions. Modality reveals the richness of possibility. It shows that reality is not confined to the actual. It invites us to explore the space of what could be, what must be, and what cannot be. Through this exploration, we gain insight into the structure of the world and the nature of our own thinking. Metaphysics, once again, helps us see the world with deeper clarity and renewed wonder.